Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast, the season review show where Middlesbrough finished in a very anti-climactic way and finishing 10th in the championship table, courtesy of a defeat to Coventry City. And I have a full house with me today. I've got Dana Malt, Matt Rowney and Tom Green. And we're here to give our best moments, our worst moments, reflect on this season. And we've got some predictions that we need to attend to because, by God, some of them are absolutely awful. But, Dana, start off with you. One key takeout, and give me your reflections on Boro's campaign.
Yeah, Ma, one key takeout from this season is that it feels like we've taken a significant step back on the journey under Michael Carrick, and I really think that we have a lot of work to do to get us back on track towards where we want to be. And I don't know if I'm still in a bout of emotion post-season, but every time I reflect on it, I just see more problems with it, whether it's our obvious inconsistency or the mistakes made during too many of our games, or the blend of the team and the balance of the squad and the quality of it. What it's shown it lacks, and therefore what it needs. It's hard to know for sure, but just off the back of that point on regression, I wouldn't be surprised if next season is another finish outside the playoffs by a little bit of a bigger points margin than the one just gone. So Boro have work to do in order to increase their competitiveness in the championship next season. And they have to get it right. It's a really big summer ahead for Boro if they want to challenge for promotion next season.
Well, they'll be doing it in a season which looks very competitive, and the teams coming up will have a lot of money to spend. And Matt, I'll come to you. You know, Dana said that there's a lot of work needs to be done, but what's your one key takeout?
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. Mine would be that I think this has been one of the most frustrating and unenjoyable seasons watching Boro in a long time. I know relative to obviously previous seasons where we have finished in a lower position, we've played worse football, Jonathan Woodgate, even times under Tony Pure, so I get all that, but I think just down to the number of opportunities we've been handed and the number of times we failed to take them, throwing results away down to our sheer inconsistency, I think there's just no other way of dressing up other than that this has been a failure of a season, a collective one, from top to bottom, really. But yeah, to not make the top six in a league as poor as this, I think is pretty damning. But to also finish beneath the likes of Millwall, Bristol City, West Brom, Blackburn, I find inexcusable. You know, they're all teams that have had what I think are inferior squads, but more importantly, I think they've had relative instability off the pitch. A lot of them have changed managers. A lot of them even had protests about the owners. They have the fraction of the budget that we do. You just can't dress it up in any other way other than it's been a massively disappointing campaign. And I can't lie, it's one that's done a lot of damage to my faith and enthusiasm for this whole project, this whole package, really. The manager, his team, the players, his style of football, everything. And yeah, instead of going into a summer where we should be looking at the next step in our evolution to get one step closer to where we want to be, it feels like, as Dana said, we've took one big step back, and we're not too far off being back to square one, really, with a really, really busy summer. So I know we'll get into it, but it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here.
And then Tom, in a new spot, you know, look at you, new boy, new background, it's all go. One key takeout.
You know, the one key takeout, I said on the podcast before, Sporting Boro's a bit like being in Purgatory, and that is what it feels like. There's a real knock in confidence with a lot of fans going into next season. We've done nothing to justify the expectations this season. Next season, who knows with what's going into it. You know, the club was saying they wanted the top six this season and then failed massively. Like I say, it feels like being in Purgatory at times, being a Boro fan, because it seems like it just goes in cycles. And barring, you know, the best summer transfer window we've ever had, which I'm still not sure that would raise not expectations, but raise confidence that much, because there's still questions around Carrick and the coaching staff. Then, going into next season, it's just like the same thing's probably going to happen again, unless we get off to a winning start and maintain it. And when do we ever do that? I don't see where the confidence is going to come from. To me, it just looks like we're going to go into next season with Carrick. He'll get let go in October, and then it all starts all over again. And we've got another 2 to 3 years, and then it'll fail again. And just want some optimism in my life as a Boro fan, but that's never really going to happen. I think I used it all in the space of 2 years between 2004 and 2006.
And it's been depressed since then. But rightly so. We had some great moments in the Northeast, Tom, and we've seen a lot of football. We've seen a lot of Premier League football, and then ever since then, it's just been championship after championship. Dan, unfortunately, you've barely ever seen any Premier League campaigns.
Yeah.
So that is a bit sad for you. But I'll round things off on my one key take. I'll probably say mine is a very sobering season. It definitely felt around like February time. I could stop drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit and look at the squad and go, well, actually, I don't think it is as good as what we all think it is. We've always had that thought that we're maybe 1 or 2 away, or 3 or 4, and then when things start to fall apart, you definitely start to see that the foundations crack a lot more. But in terms of like how much of a big of a job it is, I probably slightly disagree with Matt and Dennis on the size of the turnaround. I think it's still needed. I still think we need improvements. Raising the floor is definitely something that we need to improve on, but I don't think it's as massive as what everyone thinks. I'm seeing, we need 22 players. We need to get rid of all the coaching stuff. I don't think it's any of that. I think it's more get the right players in certain positions and build. But that, again, can be a really difficult thing to do. So there's still a lot of work that can be done, but I don't think it's as big as what we make out to be, because there is times where we've been great and there's times where we've been awful. But that's football. That's a butterfly. But like, I want to quickly just do a round robin on the general reflections, because then you've mentioned you've been deflated. Tom, you're a bit disheartened and been depressed since 2004, 2005 season. And Matt, you're saying you've been a bit disheartened with how things are going. But Tom, just on the season and alone, why has it been so disappointing in your eyes?
It's been so disappointing because of the expectations going into it. Last summer, all of the noises around the club were that, this is the year that we're really going to go for it. We really want the top 6 this year. But what's most telling is the fact that last summer, you look at our transfer incomings and outgoings, and we didn't have any sales. We kept hold of our best players. We spent, I think it was around 19 million going into the season. So from the club's perspective, I can understand why they would look at that and be like, we've invested, why are we not getting anything out of it? Obviously, midway through the season, that's when we sell that ill off. And by all accounts that have been reported in the last couple of weeks, that was inevitable after the whole Ipswich final day drama in the summer transfer window. He might have ended up unsettled in January. That's fair enough. But obviously, we let that drag on because we're trying to negotiate the best deal for ourselves. And then we panic at the end of the window and bring in Iheanacho, who we could all see didn't fit at all. And, lo and behold, he didn't. But I think even before January and before the Ben Doak injury, we still weren't doing as well as we expected to anyway. And I just feel like there was so much optimism going into last season, stemming from, the run at coming into this season. Sorry, I'm on like 4.5 hours sleep here. There was so much optimism going into this season based on the run of form we had at the end of last season. And, the signings we were making. I went to a few pre-season games last year. There was always a really, really kind of good atmosphere among the fans there. beat Swansea 1-0 on the first day, but it was from a penalty. And we'd done the same thing to Heerenveen the week before. And it's just like, right, that's good, but are we going to score from open play? And then it just kind of like went to inconsistency from there and stupid mistakes and stuff. So from going into this season, I can totally understand why the club, fans, etc., would feel really let down from what the club's achieved.
Yeah, and there's just two words I want to pick up on and ask Dana this, just around inconsistencies and the individual errors. And this is something that's plagued Boro for a long time. I think probably even before Michael Carrick. It was even happening under Chris Wilder as well, and under Neil Warnock, and under Middlesbrough in general, a championship team that do make mistakes, but it definitely feels like Dana that Boro's inconsistencies and individual errors have increased under Michael Carrick, given that the way that we play. But has that been the catalyst as to why that you stop believing in this team as much?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's only so much of the same thing that you could take as a football fan before you sit back and think, I'm not enjoying this, and I don't believe in this side. And I think I stopped believing in Boro after the 1-0 draw against Cardiff in the second week of January. In fact, it might be the first week of January. It was definitely the second game of 2025. And I know that sounds really early, but at that point, I'd seen 5 months building up to this of Boro making mistakes, being inconsistent, as you said, and struggling to find decisive moments to turn point into points. Like 3 games before that Cardiff game was the 3-3 draw against Sheffield Wednesday, where we saw the most unbelievable second half collapse. And probably part of me is still sat in the East Stand just in utter shock of that second half performance. 4 games before that, the 3-3 draw against Plymouth, where I swear we conceded the same goal 3 times, all out wide. Didn't learn the first time or the second time or the third time. 6 games before that, the 3-1 defeat against Leeds, in which playing out for the back really cost us in that game. There are only 3 fixtures that preceded that Cardiff game, but all throughout that spell of 5 months, Boro told me effectively that they're not learning from their mistakes, and that night against Cardiff was no different to that. We scored first, great, Latilath put us in front, and then we conceded because Dale Fry decided rather daftly that he was going to clear the ball in a completely unorthodox way, just tries a clever flick. It ends up at the feet of Callum Chambers, who strikes it top corner. Great goal, but we effectively assisted it. Like, if there was a goal and assist, Dale Fry would get the assist for that. So another mistake, and it's frustrating, but I think what really did it for me in that game was our response. Like, we had a chance through Latilath, roughly about 78 minutes, but like generally we barely created anything. I was looking at our XG on FOTMob yesterday. Chances equating to 0.04, 0.03, 0.02 XG. Like, that's pittance, really. It's piss all. And I feel like I saw that far too many times. Like, Boro struggling to break down teams, and a Cardiff side who are at the time just 1 point above the bottom 3. Like, for me, if you're a good side in this division, you find a way in those games. And in fairness to Boro, they found a way in the game before against Hull. But if you're a really good side in this division, you find ways week on week. And that's where the inconsistency lies. Yeah, we can get a result against Hull, and then we follow it up with dropping points against a really poor Cardiff side. So, yeah, that was the point in which I kind of just said, this team aren't good enough. If I've seen 5 months of this beforehand, why is it going to change? And I saw nothing after that to basically dispel that and to change my opinion. We just kind of continued on with the same narrative.
Matt, where do Boro go from here?
How long have you got?
Long enough.
Alluding to what Dana said, following that point, I'm sort of in that position where I think unless there's some sort of a change somewhere, I can't see anything. I can't see things improving or changing. I think if we go into next season with the same manager, playing the same style of football with the same characters of players, I think we're going to see exactly the same outcome with, as we've said, arguably what looks like on paper a more competitive league. I can't see things improving at all. So I think there needs to be a shift, whether it's the manager, his backroom staff, how that works with recruitment, because I don't see any reason to why things are going to improve. I don't like saying Carrick out, but I've said all season and I stand by it. if we failed in our goals, I'd be open for it to a change, and we failed. So I'm open to a change. And I just look at it and I think, well, year on year, we've regressed when it comes to points, goals scored, regressed. Defensively, I've never, even going as far back as 22-23, I've never been convinced by a Carrick side defensively. And our home record, I don't think's ever improved under him either. I think that continues to be mid-table at best. This season, we've saw Bristol City, Coventry, West Brom, Millwall even have far better home records than us. So there's just things that I've seen under Carrick that have persisted for a long time that still are a problem, that don't look like they're going to be fixed. I think his style of play as well has become predictable, quite boring at times. I'm not afraid to say that. And I think easy to nullify. We've started so many games really well, being outthought by the opposition, who've been more proactive, more flexible, made changes. We've not been able to respond. And I even think the argument that he plays good football is a bit of a myth at this point, because I don't think we've played good football consistently for 2 seasons. I think 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, it's not good enough. So I think that needs to change. And I'd like a Boro side that maybe, moving on to recruitment, could maybe build from the back as opposed to the front. I know you guys made a good point about Boro having samey players and options, and that might limit Carrick, and I agree. I think we need to diversify the type of options we have in each position. But I also would like to see us maybe diversify the type of characters that we have in the squad, because I do believe this team, and maybe it's the type of players that Carrick likes, I don't know, but I think we need players that are a little bit tougher, mentally stronger, more resilient, because we are a soft touch. You know, we've got a group of what I think are luxury players who are great when we're 3-0 up against Oxford and flying. But can they go to a Coventry away, Sheffield United away, Millwall away, when our backs are against the wall and we need a result? Can we have faith in this squad and their character to get that result? I wouldn't say so. So I think that needs to change. We need to diversify the players we have. And I think finally it is availability. I think all of the above is kind of irrelevant if we have players that are constantly injured and we sell our best players mid-season. I think unless we solve our injury problems, all of the issues I've mentioned are non-starters, you know, unless we can get a consistent spine who can play 35 games a season. We look back to the Karanka side that had a solid spine who were reliably fit all the time. So a bit of everything, I would say. I do expect him to still be here in August, but I believe also that if we don't start well, he won't be here for long. And then we will be playing catch-up again in a league that I think will be tougher. And that's why I do think, and I do have like one eye on, maybe it is best to make a change now and get a team who can maybe fix or make a start on fixing these issues now in pre-season as opposed to October, because a bad start feels kind of inevitable. And exactly like what Tom said, it feels like we are already inevitably heading towards that October sacking, and then a new manager comes in and here we go again. And I think as well, the fan base is quite divided, and I think maybe a change would unify everybody and at least have us all going into next season with some form of confidence and optimism, because at the minute we're teetering on the edge. Some fans are okay, some fans aren't, and if we don't start well next season, things could turn really, really quickly. So shorthand, a lot, I think. In different areas, things definitely need to change.
Yeah, definitely, Matt. I think the improvements across the board is definitely needed. And, you know, I think you made a great point there on like teams adapting mid-game, looking at Boro's numbers in terms of how we start games. I think we get things initially right, and then it's adaptation from then. I think that's why I arrive at that narrative of it is probably more the flexibility and the adaptability of players that will make a big difference for us if we were able to have it. I think when we look at Carrick's first season, when he came in, we had a fantastic squad. And additionally to that as well, he was able to change things when we needed to and had options done to do so. And, you know, he went on a 60% win rate, and we went on a crazy run from 22nd to 4th. And, you know, we were fantastic and really good to watch in that time period. And since then, it's, you know, he lost 50 goals overnight, but he still has to bring new players in and develop and build a squad. And I think as the squad's been built over the last 2 seasons, the floor has definitely dropped in comparison to what we've got from a really high quality player, from a lesser quality player, from who's more lower Championship League One standards. And there's still all of them are fantastic at football, and from a fan side of things, you should definitely, if you ever play ever with a professional footballer, you really notice the difference. But I think when you look at where Boro do improve, I think if you had to pinpoint a position, really, if I had to say if there's one way I can improve Middlesbrough next season, this is where I'd probably do it, and it'd be the goalkeeper for me. I think that there was a lot of moments this season. Individual errors have been costly, but when you look at how we will perform with the Yang in goal, his numbers aren't really that great. He had a save percentage of 55%, and for context, that's not even the top 24 goalkeepers this season. That's well below that. Minus 2.6 in terms of goal prevented. So in comparison to that, Mark Travers, when he came in, he was the third best in the league for save percentage, and he had a +4 goals prevented. So the difference of what we had in it, what it did make for Boro, was he probably saved our bushes a lot more than what Dieng would have. But it does make a difference, because if you look at the games that we did throw away and the individual errors that we had, you still think, oh, that's a compounding effect, and that might have made a difference throughout the season. So that for me is the one position where I think we definitely need to improve on. But I still think that with the right squad, Carrick can still do the right things. But that goes with every manager. If they have the right balance, the right amount of characters, it all needs to balance in the right way to make sure that you are successful. And it's not just solely prone to a certain manager. I think it's across the board. You've seen great managers with bad squads and do terribly. So I think it's an interesting time. There's definitely work to do. But I think if you had to pinpoint one improvement that we need to make, I think it's definitely the goalkeeper. But let's go through the season, because we did start off with a win. We beat Swansea, the first victory in over a decade. And then we beat Leeds 3-0, and that was when we all thought we were going Sizzler at that point. And after that, we lost to Derby after an individual error. We drew at home with Portsmouth because of another individual error. Then we got done 5-0 at home to Stoke. And then you're thinking, Matt, you're coming into the season, you were initially excited, you've started so well, and then how are you feeling after that?
Well, I'm never going to make the same mistake that I made at the start of this season in terms of being optimistic about Boro. I should have known better. To start with, I felt really good. I felt really optimistic after that Leeds game. As you say, I felt like we were winning a lot, to be honest. And I felt like we'd gotten over that big restart that we're heading into now, building the base of what I thought was a good squad, a deliberate attempt to hold on to our best players, which we retained. The club made a point of keeping Hackney, Lath, Rav, etc. And I felt really confident that we'd be a top 6 contender. I think it became quickly apparent we were never going to be at the pace of the top 2, but I thought we could still at least look at what Sunderland were doing, and we could stand by them and sort of hang around, but be up there long enough to consolidate a playoff place. But as I say, I felt good. The standard of the league wasn't great, and to look back now, if I was to go back and tell myself in October that we'd finished 10th, I think my past self at that point would have been extremely disappointed. So I won't be making the same mistake again, let me say that.
Doesn't it just sum Boro up that in the same month we have that performance against Leeds, which everyone thought, like, as you said there, Johnny, we're going Sizzler. And then in the very same month, in the same competition, the next round, we get absolutely drubbed 5-0 off Stoke. Like, I know different teams and such, but I think that sums up our season. And there's quite a few months actually that sum up our season, but that we should have known back then that we were going to get a very inconsistent, very frustrating Middlesbrough side that can tease you into thinking they're a good side and then very quickly post a really bad confidence kind of killing result. Although I wouldn't say the Stoke game was a confidence killing result, but still.
Yeah, but it's not ideal, is it? I think when you got beat 5-0,
No.
you think, oh god, this is not good. Even if you do make the changes, it's never good to get beat 5-0. And look where Stoke end up in a bit of a basket case at the moment. But Tom, you've seen that final defeat. You're looking at Boro after 10 games. You like to analyse things probably every 10, really, because that gives you a good indicator of what things are happening in terms of the numbers. It gives you a good grasp of data to play with. But after 10 games, Boro were 9th, 4 wins, 2 draws, and 2 defeats. 4 draws. No, sorry. 4 wins, 2 draws, 4 defeats. God, that was I couldn't, you know what? I need another coffee, I think. I'm going to go for a break. So, Tom, whilst you tell everyone about the assessment of the start of the campaign, I'm just going to go and grab a coffee, okay?
Yeah. So, start of the campaign, I think, as I said earlier, that first game against Swansea, I was analysing things from pre-season, and the games I went to Bishop Auckland and where we played Bolton, and I thought there, you know what, we've done all right. We had some good play at times, albeit it was when the first team, or what you would call the first team at that point, were on. Then I went to Harrogate, drove all the way to Harrogate for a 0-0 draw, and then watched the Heerenveen game at the Riverside. And from those last two, I was like, we've not created a lot from open play. The Harrogate game was boring. The Heerenveen game was, it was meh. It was 5 out of 10. And then we kind of pulled the same kind of performance against Swansea, and I was like, right, it's something to build on, but you know, at least we've got the points, and then we can go again next week. Beat Leeds, that was where everything kind of peaked for me, even though you can look back at it and be like, that's just the cup. It wasn't a full strength side on either team. I was just kind of like, yes, it's not the same. It's not a full strength side, but we played well. And, you know, I went into that game thinking we're going to get battered. It's always the same at Ellen Road. And we came away with a 3-0 win. And then from there, that's where it starts going downhill. That's where Derby on the Saturday, while I remember this, I was fighting with the skybox, trying to get our game on Sky Sports Plus, and you know, didn't end up getting to watch it. So I had to like drive from Hartlepool to my dad's, and on the drive, I heard it on the radio, and I was like, for God's sake. And watching the rest of the game, I was just like, where's this goal coming from? Because you know, I think we had a lot of the ball, but we just couldn't create anything. And then it was just a bit downhill from there. But then the one that really got me at the start of the season was that Stoke game. And again, you can look at that and be like, oh, it was just the cup and rotated squads and whatever. But losing 5-0 at home to Stoke, it's not acceptable in any competition, whether that's the Championship or the Carabao Cup. And coming out of that game, I was like, God, like I thought we'd try to like address depth and stuff in the summer, and yeah, just coming out of that, I was like, what on earth are we in for this season? And I think based on the first few games there, I shouldn't be shocked at how we finished the season. But ultimately, that first 10 games, far too inconsistent, and it just kind of shows what we were setting up for the rest of the season. And it was individual errors, it was bad tactical choices, and, you know, late changes in games, like not being able to change games. So ultimately, after that 10 games, I was just looking at it like, you know, Sunderland have been on this mad winning run, and, you know, Leeds and Burnley are doing all right and stuff. And I feel more and more now, like, if you don't get off to a good start in the Championship, that's it. Like, you're never going to catch up. Or if you do, it's going to be like what we did a couple of years ago, or what Coventry did this year, where, like, you just springboard up the league in the late half of the season and get into the playoffs. I think after that 10 games, if you are not fighting for top 2 or, you know, top 4, you're probably not going to be for the rest of the season. And looking at that, we were, would you say, 9th after 10 games? It's just kind of like, it seems like it's gone already. So that for me is why next season we need a strong start. Like I say, when was the last time we did it? But it needs to happen. If we want to have any realistic chance of achieving playoffs at a minimum, we need a strong start. We can't afford inconsistent stuff, and this is where it worries me around the squad building and, you know, potential change, and as a potential change, but like inevitable change in October when, you know, things aren't looking right. it's just seemed very similar for a few seasons now.
Just on that as well, the inconsistencies in starting a season well. I think those first 10 games, although you are going into a campaign, it very much sets the tone of the season. You can get a very good understanding of what a squad's like, where the inconsistencies and inefficiencies are within it. And I'm all for it. A great start for Boro. It's just trying to prolong it throughout the season where we haven't really done that for a long, long time. And all teams go through periods of not getting results where you want to get to. But for Boro now, it's been a very much a 5 wins, 5 defeats, 5 wins, 5 draws, 5 defeats. Then we get 5 wins again, and then it's like, okay, well, we've just not built enough throughout the season to really do enough to get into those positions. But I think the biggest disappointment for me is just how low the points tally was to get into the playoffs this year, and we still couldn't do it with all the opportunities that we had, with all the injuries, with how we finished the season. It leaves you very frustrated, and I think that's where a lot of fans are saying or questioning Carrick's future, because if you couldn't do it now, when are you going to do it? And it'd be very typical Boro to get a record points tally to try and get in the playoffs and still miss out next year. But that's typical Boro for you, to be honest. But there is some good moments. There has to be some good moments of this season, because there has to be. We can't go through a full season without not enjoying at least a single moment in time. Do any of you guys have any moments which you enjoyed apart from the final whistle?
I think it's got to be that 3-game run in November, hasn't it? I mean, without that, my God, I don't know what we'd say for this question. Like, I was thinking about it outside of those 3 games, and I was struggling to really find some good moments of this season. Like, there has been some, but I feel like they're diminished immediately because Boro can't build up any sort of momentum. Like, we'll win on the weekend, or we'll win midweek, and then we'll lose at the weekend, and then we're talking on a podcast about a mixed week. So I would say that 3-game run, which has done a lot of heavy lifting for this season, it has to be said. And in particular, I'm gonna speak about the Latte Lath goal against QPR, which was just the most Latte Lath goal that you could ever see. It was a fantastic assist by Riley McGree as well. Really top piece of quality. And just a reminder that Riley McGree is a very good player despite his injury issues. And yeah, that Latte Lath goal, he made it so difficult. He made it look so awkward, and it was so brilliant because it was so Latte Lath. So I'd probably say that. And also, I just want to shout out the wins against West Brom this season. If Michael Carrick wants to adjust Boro and adapt Boro to be a different side, I wish and I hope that he looks back on those 2 games against West Brom, because 2 clean sheets in those games against them. Obviously, one against Carlos Corberán, the other against Tony Mowbray. But just Boro being efficient and Boro being a bit different in having a little bit of solidity at the back. And I remember the home game against them. I think that was the one against Mowbray, right? We actually conceded a little bit. I feel like we low blocked them, and going into the new year, Boro being low blocked and being stifled and nullified through just a compact, resolute defence in opposition was a big problem. And Boro actually, Uno reverse, there you go, we're going to low block you. And so, yeah, maybe look at those games as hallmarks of, what, we can play differently and we can get results. And I feel like when Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough adapt, they can be very effective. Like, we think about the Leicester game last season where he switched it up, we got a result. Too many managers nowadays, I feel like, are stuck to their ways and they don't adapt. If Michael Carrick can adapt notably, not just tweaks here and there, but maybe change the style of play, maybe concede a little bit, maybe we can be a more efficient side that can maximise the points that we get. So yeah, the 3 games in November and the 2 games against West Brom I'm going to pick out as good moments this season.
Yeah, just on that as well, the adaptability point. I think I always used to say this podcast about being like flexible with how you get there.
Say the line, Bart. Say the line.
fine. Be rigid with your goals, but be flexible on how you get there.
Yay, there it is.
It's so true though, right? It is so true. You've got to change things when you need in games. You've got to adjust like systems, ways of playing, patterns of play. Yes, you have to. Yes, you have an ideation or a way or you talk of wanting to play, but that doesn't always translate. And I feel like you need to just have a different option on to really maximise the squad. And I think losing Crooks probably this year lost us that adaptability because no one could hold the ball up. And when someone can't hold the ball and can't get you the pitch, you're very much playing to someone's hands. But enjoyable moments for me. I think the Leeds game was a very enjoyable one. Naturally, the 18 goals in 3 games. Hayden Hackney's winner against West Brom for me was brilliant, and how Hayden Hackney has blossomed even more this year. I think he's just a great talent. It's been such a joy to watch him and Aiden in midfield. It's been really good to see. If I was a game, I'd probably say the first half against Norwich away was brilliant, and then Tommy Conway's knee slides have been superb this year. I've really enjoyed those. They've been very memorable and stuck in my brain. But I don't know if Matt, Tom, you have any enjoyable moments at all?
Yeah, well, I agree with all the ones you've mentioned. You can't beat scoring 19 goals or whatever it was in 3 games. But I equally do love a 1-0 win away. Like the West Brom game away from home, I thought Boro going to a Carlos Corberan West Brom side at the Hawthorn Switch. I think they were unbeaten at the time. I don't think they'd lost at home. And for Boro to go there and nick it 1-0, them wins are just as satisfying for me. And I wish we'd have more of them. But a personal one for me was the whole game away from home on New Year's Day, because I went there. I'd not seen us win away in the league ever up until what was a decade at that point, barring big up Anthony Dykesteel's dad giving me tickets to the United game away in the cup. That's a cup game. But away in the league, Hull City away from home, we'd knocked the door down. Well, we banged on the door second half, and I thought it's not coming. It's not going to come. And it was going to be another typical away day for me. And then Ale Gilbert popped up in the 93rd minute to nick it home, and the away went absolutely bonkers. And I couldn't believe that I was there to witness it. And then I went on a 100% away winning record after that. I went to Blackburn, won there. 2025, it was a bit of a bad year for Boro so far, but it was a great year for me as a travelling fan. So maybe I need to just go to more away games next season, and we'll get promoted as the Invincibles.
100% record after that one game.
After 10 years of defeat today, now I will take that. I've seen some pretty bad away performances, so I'll take it.
Then go on, Tom.
So I think for
anything
me,
enjoying your life?
No, nothing to smile about, man, Johnny. But I think for me it was like the Luton game at home, Oxford game away, and the Leeds game in the cup are the few highlights I can really think of. I think everything else has been far too inconsistent to really get excited about. But those were a handful of games where it had raised optimism. Obviously, we were probably going to follow them on at some point with like a complete 180 in terms of performance and, be proper Jekyll and Hyde. But I think for me, those ones were probably the most entertained I've been this season. And then the rest of it's been pretty dire, to be honest.
Yeah, it has been, Tom. It has been, but I will shift the dial back to one position, really. And I think this is something that we've addressed and spoke about at length, and it is the goalkeeping position. All 4 goalkeepers have played a part this season, Tom. And how costly do you think this has been in terms of the campaign?
Well, it's just the inconsistency, isn't it? And it's the defence not really knowing who's behind them and not really kind of getting that good understanding. I think up until we had Mark Travers, that was always the case. It's a little bit similar to last season in the respect that, we got to January last season, Seny Dieng left for the African Cup of Nations. Thankfully, Tom Glover didn't make the Australian squad. Otherwise, we would have been left with Jamie Jones at that point. But we got left in a bad situation for goalkeeping last year. Similar's happened this year through injuries, and it doesn't help in terms of the defense getting that good understanding with the keeper and building out from the back in terms of calmness and stuff like that. There's no real stability there, so I think it is an issue. And then going into next season, obviously we've just lost Travers. He's gone back to Bournemouth. I think based on Dieng's injury, he's probably not going to be back for pre-season. So then we're left with Bryn and Glover. Obviously, Hemmond's coming back just to go straight back out on a permanent by the sounds of it. I know, like I've listened to it was the Northern Echo podcast this week, and they were talking about Solbrun, and they're saying like, oh, he's probably going to get his chance for the number one shirt and stuff. That makes me incredibly nervous for next season, and it's not anything to do with Solbrun in particular, because I think he's had good performances when he's came in, not all the time, but he did well enough. It was definitely a step up on Dieng. But I think in general, trying to bring through an academy product into the goalie spot, I think it's always difficult, because it's not like one of those outfield positions where you can bring on a left winger for 20 minutes at a time at the end of games and let him grow into it, and then he becomes more and more part of the squad. You are instantly putting this academy product into possibly the most highly scrutinized position on the pitch, and you need essentially perfection in terms of performances. They can't really make a mistake. We can't have the patience for a goalie to make a mistake. Otherwise, you just end up with the season going the same way it just has, where, goalies were making mistakes at the start of this. We talked about Dieng stats earlier, but it just gives you a mountain to climb for the rest of the season. And then, you might end up having to address it in January, and by then it's too late. So I hope we build on our goalkeeping position in the pre-season. Doesn't look likely that it's going to be Travers, but there's options out there of senior goalkeepers who I think could come in and at least challenge for a shirt if the club is going with Bryn as the number one option. But like I say, he's going to need about 5 top draw performances in the first 5 games to really calm the nerves from me. But it would be the same with any academy goalkeeper. It's not necessarily a reflection on his skills.
Yeah, you notice the difference, didn't you? I think under Gareth Southgate, when we went with Brad Jones and Ross Turnbull when went towards the left. So in that
might be it. It might be like PTSD from that time that I've got about this.
Well, you get 10% off with Johnny 10 for any therapy that's going on with Tom's goalkeeping habits. But yeah, like it does feel like that though. I think with Solbrun, he definitely needs time and see how he's going to develop. Look, he was in the League One or League Two team of the season, wasn't he, for his performances? So there's merit there, and I think you have to keep building on it. He has to be given a chance at one point, and this probably is the season to do it. And he has to showcase why he's deserving of that spot. But Matt, as former president of the Senny Dieng club, can you see a way back for Senny Dieng, or is that club just completely disbanded now?
Yeah, disbanded, liquidated. The windows are boarded up, the shutters are down. The building's getting demolished. It's done. No, I can't see a way back for him at all. We can't forget that prior to his injury, he was dropped for Solbrun, as we say. Carrick was actually quite ruthless in how he dropped Senny Dieng. He didn't, if I recall, waste too much time before dropping him, but we can't have a goalkeeper between the sticks that, as you mentioned, Johnny, has a save percentage that's 25th in a 24-team league. It's just not good enough. And I think we've saw with Mark Travers what a difference a good shot stopper can make. I know there's a lot made about distribution nowadays and how that can benefit a team, but I think we've saw that even if a goalkeeper's distribution's not great, he has to be a great shot stopper first and foremost. And I dread to think where we would have finished without Mark Travers. The Luton game, I remember. I think even against Oxford, I can't remember if they fluffed big chances or if he made a save or two. I think he may have, but there were times this season where he kept us in games, and what was already a pretty damning 10th place finish could have been worse without Mark Travers. So that's the benefit of having a really good goalkeeper. And I think over the course of a 46-game season, them small changes are amplified and they make a massive difference. So I wouldn't trust Senny Dieng, and I don't think he'll be a number 2 either. I don't think he'd want to be. So for me, I'd look to move him on, maybe have Solbrin as a number 2 and bring in a top championship goalkeeper if you can to be that number 1, because I think with Boro and the way we play, if we do go into next season with Carrick, I still think we'll give up loads of big chances because I've never seen anything to suggest otherwise. So I think with the way we play, we need a top goalkeeper in the sticks between the sticks to keep us in games. So yeah, Dieng, I think his race is run. I don't think he'll be getting sold in the summer actually because of his injury. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I don't think we'll see him in goal for Boro again, I wouldn't say.
So Matt's given Dieng the door, and we're going to go for someone else in the summer. But then talk to me about not just the goalkeeping performances, but the crusty clown college of goals we conceded this season.
Oh my God, yeah, it's been farcical. You know what? Last season, it was all about conceding low quality chances and long range audacious efforts. It almost felt like every club's goal of the season was scored against Middlesbrough. But this season, it's just been a calamity, really. You can play the Benny Hill theme song over the goals that Boro have conceded, and it would fit perfectly. Like, I've got a list here of 11 goals that we've conceded through mistakes. And I've been pretty lenient with it because I actually excluded the goal that we conceded against Leeds, the Willie Gnonto one where Dieng tried to clear it with his feet and it ricocheted off Gnonto into the back of the net. He basically blocked it and then scored. Like, only Boro would concede that goal. It's been absolutely farcical. And I kind of wonder off the back of it, does Carrick change tact? Like, does he try to build out and improve Boro at the back off the ball to reduce the possibility of that happening, of goals like that being conceded? Because it's 2 seasons now that the focus has been primarily on Boro's defence rather than the attack. Like in 2022-23, when we got into the playoffs, Boro's defence was never the best, and I don't think anybody was under any illusions that it was good. But we managed to negotiate that through having just a peak efficient attack, one of the best in the division for creating chances and scoring goals. And so it's an interesting juncture now for Carrick, because does he change the way that he maybe approaches or wants his teams to approach games? But I guess another question off the back of it is, what is the crux of the problem? Because for a lot of the mistakes that I've got here, I don't see it being a case of Boro being poor defensively in terms of their structure. I think it is Boro's players' decision-making in moments. So that's like a mentality thing. Like, that's on the players. Is it so much on Carrick? Like, some people could maybe say that it boils down to the play style, the kind of maybe the risky style of play potentially, but I don't really see Boro being a risky team. I think it is just the players need to be smarter in moments, need to pick their moments better, need to make better decision making. It all boils down to mentality for me.
I fully agree on the player shout. You know, when we watch a lot of Middlesbrough, both at the game and then in Y Scout, and looking at clips and trying to break these issues down, because, you know, when we're recording, we pretty much want to validate what we're saying, really. And when I watch Middlesbrough in a defensive shape, there's nothing much where I can say, you know what, maybe I would want my team to do something. It's just my opinion of how I would want things to be set up. And when I've watched teams, you know, I went and watched Leverkusen the other day, and I went and watched, you know, I've been watching teams just around the country and just seeing how teams set up. And we all have different shapes, and we all play in certain ways, and we all have inefficiencies. And possession teams can be really expansive, and it can just be one through ball which cuts you open. But where Boro have adapted, I would say, on the characters, when in that first season we were very, very expansive, and you could see how teams could play through us, where the last year or two we've been a very narrow side, and it's to stop teams on the transition against us so we get back into shape and defend a lot better. But those individual errors keep happening. And it comes back to that thought, really, of improving quality and trying to get players who can make better decisions. And like you're saying there, Dan, I think it was a really spot on point around the mentality issue. You have to improve that, but also you improve that by bringing in probably more seasoned players that can make that better decision, or you can bring in better quality to raise the floor and try and reduce those inconsistencies from game to game. I think from a manager's standpoint, I think he's done enough for me to say if he's got the right squad, he'll do very well with it. And can we do that in the window? I'm not too sure. But I don't think from a system standpoint, you can maybe switch it to a starting back three. That might help. But there's nothing much I would drastically change on the pitch, probably. I think when you move to a defensive team and you focus on counter-attacking, you are very, very limited because of well, I think Sunderland were a prime example in the playoffs the other night where they just sat, got dominated for the entire game, should have went out, and then they just took one set piece and they've changed the game on its head. You have to rely on a single moment when you do that defensive style. So I'd much rather a team, be creative and score goals than being a very, very, very defensive, solid unit. It's very hard to get that balance, and it doesn't always work. I think Burnley would be a prime example next season. They've built a team solidly on defense, got 100 points. Great way to do it. Leeds have done exactly the same thing. But next year, I'm probably more favour of Leeds staying up than would be Burnley, because Burnley can't score goals and don't create enough chances. And they would have to rely on a lot for something to change to do that. So, but
it's a good point. Like, I think we've had discussions kind of off pod around like the way that Boro, the way that we want Boro to play. And I know that Tom, you especially want to see Boro kind of hark back to the Karanka days where we were defensively resolute. Like, personally, that's not the way that I enjoy football. Like, when it's successful, sure, I guess. But like, for me, the best season that I've seen in recent years was that 2022-23 season where we were so good going forward. And I know that that might not have been sustainable in hindsight. It might not have been the blueprint towards Boro effectively going up, especially if you're in the playoffs. Maybe if you're trying to get top two, then it's perfect. But if you're in the playoffs and it becomes a bit of a fight, maybe you do need to have a little bit of defensive solidity. But like, people may say that Burnley are an example of a team that we can emulate. I don't want us to emulate Burnley. I want us to be an attacking side. And yeah, maybe that is naive. Maybe that's not necessarily achievable for the things that I've just mentioned. But like, yeah, I want us to be adaptable in games, but I don't want Carrick to kind of throw his blueprint out of the window completely from the off within games. I do want Boro to be an attacking side that are very fluid going forward. And I feel like it's a decent approach from Carrick. We just haven't had the right pieces to that puzzle, I think. When you look at the second half squad, it's been very limited, very predictable. It's fed into Boro's problems rather than negating them. Like, yeah, it's a collective effort to get Boro kind of racing in the way that I want them to. But I don't really want Boro to become a defensive side. And I know that that's an opinion that I know Tom doesn't share because he said it previously.
Yeah, I think with that one, you could probably tie it back to what Johnny said earlier about being rigid about your goals and flexible on how you get there. If we've got a team now where you can make them a little bit stronger defensively and win more and get out of the position, get out of the division, sorry, I think a lot of fans would take that, and it would be a nice to have if we could kind of be that attacking team that we were a couple of years ago when Carrick first came in, and everyone's kind of getting entertained and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a results business, and for me, if we're playing entertaining football and not getting results, that is far down the list of priorities compared to being a little bit more resolute but actually coming out with the 3 points.
Yeah, I agree with Tom. I'm more leaning that way as well. I just want to see a team that's a bit more adaptable, that can win in different ways. I'm kind of over Carrick ball a little bit. As I say, I've not seen enough of it. It's bored me a little bit. Maybe it is down to the options he has, but I've just not seen enough to suggest that we'll be defensively solid enough to get to where we need to be. And I think primarily to get out of the league, you need to be defensively good. You don't have to have the best attack, and I don't know if if we'll ever have that level of attacking efficiency that we had in 22-23, I think we struck gold a little bit. And I think to have that level to sort of overshadow our defensive shortcomings, I just can't see that happening unless he does change or shift something. And I just don't have enough confidence that we will ever be solid enough to do that, or we'll have the players that will be good enough to do that. So that's where my confidence in sort of Carrick ball, you could say, has took a hit. And I would much, not backs against the wall, Tony Pulis ball. I'm not wanting a shift as high as that, but I would like to see him maybe look at building this side up from the back first, making sure we've got a solid base to then, build from there, and then look at maybe what we can do going forward.
Yeah, I would say on the base, if you look at it, I don't think it's as bad as what people make out. I still think it's relatively it's good enough. Not perfect, but it's good enough. I think there's still people you can add to it. I think with Hackney going in the summer, I think you need to look at ball carrying eight. Obviously, we'll come on to it in a second, but and I think centre back is probably a position where you'd look at and go, well, if Lenihan's not fit, who's going to be a horrible player to play next to Rav or Fry? And you can maybe utilise Fry as that centre back if you want to have a three. But I think the base isn't too bad, but I still think you can always improve it, and you can always improve any player on the pitch. I just think, how do you want to adjust your team for next season? But on the changes side of things, and I want to quickly touch on January, because it feels like a very sliding doors moment for everyone, really, because we were 1 win in 6, we were 7th in the championship table. You're adding to the team. You've got Samuel and Jr., you've got Giles back, you've brought Edmondson on a permanent, which just seemed like a bit of a farce anyway. You've brought Travers in, you've got Kelechi coming in too, and then you've seen the likes of Matt Clark go. You brought in Morgan Whitaker as well. I'm really keen to get everyone's thoughts on this, because everyone says no, that this was such a poor transfer window. But at the time, when you look at the tweets, everyone was relatively quite happy with it. So I'm keen to hear, how would Boro's transfer window be a more positive experience now in hindsight?
I think we probably, looking back, should have lessened the reliance on Ben Doak. I think we were far too over-reliant on him going into the January window. And the thing with Ben Doak is, people may look back on his season as an absolute high, but there were moments where Ben Doak was kind of playing into Boro's predictability. I do remember before he got injured, his runs, his direct runs, had been reduced. He kept moving inside, kept passing to the left of him rather than, road runner straight ahead. And I do remember reflecting on one of the podcasts saying that he seems to fade a lot in the second half. And that's understandable. This is no real profound criticism of Ben Doak. He's a young player. And I think with the young players, you're going to get those moments where they look like world beaters, and other times where their influence maybe wanes a little bit. But we really needed to make sure that Ben Doak wasn't the one and only outlet for us. And unfortunately, he was. And then we didn't really do much to lessen that over-reliance. And so thinking about how to Boro effectively ask more questions of the opposition, we needed more parts of the team that could do that. And without Ben Doak, I think Finn Azaz has suffered. And the replacement of Ben Doak, Morgan Whitaker, I guess, his competition that was brought in, just as I said before, just fed into Boro's problems at that time. Because going into January, it was all about Boro gets the low block, Boro gets a solid unit. How can they break through? How can they maximise their opportunities in possession? And yeah, I think directness, pace, width were all things that we needed in January, because it was everything that Ben Doak gave us. So if you could duplicate Ben Doak and put him on the opposite flank or through the middle or anything like that, that's what Boro should have done, and that's what Boro didn't do.
I'd say I agree with all that, by the way, as well. I think it left us so limited going forwards. I always, now looking back, I think the defence was just neglected, really. I went into that window and I had no faith in the fitness of our centre-halves anyway. And when we let Matt Clark go, I was like, fair enough. I don't mind that. If he wants to leave, move him on. But we have to replace him. And we didn't. And I remember looking back at it at the time and thinking, okay, we've got 3 centre halves. Can I really have faith that Rav, Fry, and Edmondson were all going to stay fit? No chance. Not for me. And that press conference still rings in my ear when Michael Carrick was asked, "Will we replace Clark?" He went, "Oh, no, we'll be all right." And I think it was just so predictable. With the fitness record of them 3 centre halves, they were not going to see out the season. Were we unlucky that they all get injured at the same time? Maybe, but I think that was something we could have foreseen. So I think it was criminal leaving us with only 3 centre halves, and the knock-on effect of that was huge because you then have to bring Luke Ayling into centre half. He gets injured. That leaves us with only one right back with Anthony Dijksteel, which, as we've seen, he's been released, isn't good enough to be a starting right back consistently. And then at left back, you're having to bring Neto Borges in. That's meant that we've had to play Samuel Inning Jr. there, which I don't think is his best position. I would have liked him further forward. And then obviously the only other defensive incoming was Ryan Giles, and we all saw the sort of risks and the how that could have potentially gone wrong. So other than Travers, I thought the defence was left in a really, really precarious position, and one that we could all see falling apart very quickly. And the knock-on effect of that, I think, has been significant as well, because at times we had Howson and Borges in there. As I say, you can't trust Dijksteel over a prolonged period, and that's another scepticism of mine with Carrick. Reports suggest he was offered alternatives. He didn't take them. He was happy with the defence we had, and I look at that and I think, well, how could you be happy with the defence that we were left with after January? So I take all the issues that we left ourselves from an attacking point of view, but I think we left ourselves in such a risky position defensively, and I think in a team that already can't defend all that well, with defenders that are always unfit, I think that was a risky position that we put ourselves in.
Yeah, definitely. On the face value as well of the January window, the Illen Jr., Travers, and Giles signings, I'm thinking of those. I'm going, yeah, we've brought someone on the left with Illen Jr. That's all right. We've got an option there now. Ryan Giles coming back. I don't think anyone was not happy with it. I think because everyone was so happy with it. It was his first spell here. And then Travers was an improvement in goal. Unfortunately, you've got your poster boy in Kelechi Iheanacho, or Ian Sneeze, as we call him. And we've also got Morgan Whittaker, who came in on about £5 million fee. These two have probably give people a perspective of how bad the transfer window was, in my opinion. I think that with any attacking player that comes into Middlesbrough, I think they do find their feet after 6 or 7 months under Carrick. We see him with Finn Azaz, but it didn't really it took him a little bit longer to get used to it. But when he did, he started to really hit up the numbers. And, with Alaf, it was the same. But with Morgan Whittaker, it's just not worked yet. And I think that's a frustrating from Boro side, from Boro fans' perspective, because you want instant success. But then Ian Sneeze was just never ever going to work. It was never going to work. And you've brought them in. You've probably brought him in for more of he's played in England. He's got more experience. He might adapt a bit quicker. Anyone can be experienced, but it's like serving a palmo in a Chinese. Like it's just not fit. You like both, but it's just not fitting, is it? Let's be honest here. So it was never going to work. But I mean, I wouldn't mind trying it, But
giggling at Iheanacho on Instagram after he scored against Oxford, posting first of many, one of one goal, 2 assists. Brilliant, isn't it? And you know what? It was so obvious he was going to flop here. I'm sorry. As I said before, there are a few players that you just know they're not going to do well here. You can judge a player before they've kicked a ball for a football club, and Kelechi Iheanacho is your prime example of that.
100%. You always have to go in about like 60-70% and say, maybe they might have seen something, but you could see from straight away that it wasn't going to work. And then I don't think he gelled with Conway at all. I think they were too far in between each other. Iheanacho needs players around him to get the best out of him, and you centre forward playing left wing at points. So it was very, very, very difficult for it to even work. It just never did at all. But let's look ahead to the summer before we move into a prediction part of the show, where we'll reflect on all our pre-season predictions and just laugh at them for 5 minutes. But the summer's a big one. We've all said it. We've all said we need to add to it. And is there any types of players that you guys think that we need to target in the transfer window? Tom, can you take this one?
Yeah, so I think in terms of like a profile of, well, characteristics, really, I think we want to raise the bar. So it needs to be people who've been there and done it in terms of promotion, or it needs to be signing people who are at least as good, if not better, than what we already have. In terms of positions, right back has to be a priority. We can't just go into next season with just Luke Gale in there. I'd look at signing someone else for goalkeeper. Left back potentially, depending on how Bangura is. If it looks like he's going to be fit for the start of next season, we've got 2 left backs there, so I don't have a problem. Centre midfield is an area where I think we need to invest, and I think it needs to be at least 2 signings, because even though we've released the retain list yesterday at time of recording, and Housen is on the release list, but they're saying there's talks ongoing and stuff like that. I still think even if he gets like another year extension with his contract, you still need a couple of players there who are going to be long-term options. I'd like us to sign competition up front, competition for Finn Azaz, and competition for right wing as well. So I think there's a lot to do. But like I say, in terms of the kind of characteristics profile of a player, I'd like players with that promotion experience and skill-wise better than or the same as what we've kind of got. Because ultimately that's how we're going to build depth, and that's how we're going to build a squad where you can rotate certain players and help us get out of this division. Because at the moment, there are gaps in the squad where you think if someone gets injured, who's replacing them? And, are we seeing this as a like-for-like replacement, or is this, just someone kind of a younger player being expected to take their chance? What I'd also like to see an end to this summer is buying players who can play multiple positions and thinking, that's the best way to go about it. Because I think we've seen over the course of this season and last that it's clearly not. You need 2 players for every position, and, signing someone who can play right wing, left wing, 10 and 9, just buy a specialist in the position. Like we don't need this. Just buy 2 players for every position. Like I can't even stress how strongly I feel about that. Just 2 players for every position, 2 specialists in that position. If it's different types of player, so we get Whittaker and an out-and-out right winger on the right-hand side, that's fine. But you've still got 2 right wingers there.
Yeah, I think we'll change it in the summer. I think I have a thought that I think we'll move to a back 3 next year. I think there's, just from watching Middlesbrough and looking at the players that we have at our disposal and what the players like to do, I think that wing backs is such an important position for us that we'll look at in this summer, or at least address. There is definitely improvements to be made. I think there's a goalkeeper, definitely. I think a ball carrying 8 is definitely an improvement. You need to bring in another centre forward. I think wing backs is a real pivotal thing, because since Middlesbrough want to play centrally and try to get in behind and trying to control the middle of the park, what that has done is caused us to be really limited in certain areas. And I think that a much better right wing back and a left wing back in terms of Bangura can definitely play that position, by the way. I think they can offer you so much and more in terms of a different dimension, but also allow you to control the middle of what we really would like to do. We've seen us play in possession where it's that back 3 and we shift things over to the left-hand side. I think we'll probably tweak it a lot further. I think if you play with base, you play with 2 in front of that, and then you play with wing backs. It allows you to have more of a solidity in certain areas, but also allows you to expand a lot more than we need to. So I think there's a change coming. I can feel it. I'm personally I would want to, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how we play, because I think, remember in Carrick's in the season before, we brought in a few players to try and play a certain way, and it didn't really work. But I think now is probably the time to try it again and bring in players that same with you, Tom, too, for every position, but also with the back three and the way that we play. It's not too dissimilar to what we do now. I just think a starting set using wing backs a lot more would probably give Boro much more beneficial. It would be beneficial to Conway because he has players near him, and then secondly to that as well, it allows players to allows the team to get balls in the box when we need to, and you'll have enough bodies in the box there to actually attack the goal rather than before where it's like looking at Conway's then there's no one in the box. I think that would help a lot with Boro going forward. But then also you've got that defensive base there as well if Boro were to get transitioned against. But I don't know, Matt, have you got any thoughts on where you look at?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Tom says. As I say, I'd diversify the type of players we have in certain positions. So I'd have 2 players in every position. I agree completely, who can maybe offer different things, but are specialists in them positions. But as I said earlier, it's also the character of them players. You know, I think we've got some really nice, technically gifted flair players, some really good, you could say, luxury players who, you know, on their day can go on and do amazing things. But I think they need the right characters around them who can help pull us through games when, you know, they're maybe not on it. So I definitely have, you know, stronger characters in the team, raise the floor of the depth of the side, and bring in more players that are maybe a little bit more hardened, experienced, who can drag us through them games. Because I think we are a little bit of a soft side that needs to be hardened up a little bit. But yeah, players, goalkeeper, centre halves. I don't know. Maybe a more reliable centre half who doesn't get injured. I just like a consistent centre back partnership that I can count on being fit for 35 games a season rather than being in for 1 month, injured for another. Right back, yeah, that needs work. Centre midfield, I don't know how the hell you replace Hayden Hackney, but we probably need bodies there as well as an upgrade on Dan Barlasser and maybe a replacement for Howson. And I think on the wings, I love your idea, Johnny. I'd be all for a back three. If we stick with what we're doing now, I'd like players that offer us a lot more width and a lot more pace. If I see another inverted winger walk through the doors in Rockcliffe in the summer, I think my head will be on Mars. So, yeah, no more inverted wingers, please. And, yeah, some competition up front. So not much. Kieran Scott doesn't have to do all that much. Not much work needed at all, yeah.
You know what I'd sign? Just a bunch of shit houses. They're also good at playing football, of course, but I want the Championship to fucking hate playing against Middlesbrough. I think we are too much of a soft touch. I think I would love to see us turn heel, go full Bully Maguire, and just be a bunch of shit houses. I want us to be inundated with shit house island visits. And again, as I said, good at playing football as well, because that's paramount, isn't it? But also like a good shot stopper, a right back with an athletic right back, good quality of delivery. I think a physical number 10 with box presence, someone that can run into the box and score goals from those situations, and an impact player as well, much like Crooks, clutch, comes up big with big moments, and of course a replacement for Hayden Hackney as well.
You really do miss Matt Crooks, don't you, Dana? You really miss Crooksy.
I always have close to my desk the cutout of Matt Crooks's face. He's always on hand. I just stick him back on the desk there.
Yeah, call him Matt Clutch, because that's what he was, a clutch player. But let's move on. Let's go through our pre-season predictions now. So in our pre-season show, we do make predictions on where Boro will finish, who's going to go up, who's going to go down, who's going to be that surprise package, Boro Young Player of the Year, Boris Player. And we'll end on, going into our bold predictions, which are even worse than that. So we'll kick things off with where Boro will finish. Now, disclaimer, we all said that Boro would finish in the playoffs. We were all clearly wrong on this one. And Dana, you said 5th?
Mm-hmm.
Tom, you said 4th. Matt said 5th. And I went with a 6th. I went with a conservative 6th. I said I need to see more and we're going to grow into it. And we all failed miserably on that one.
Boo. We know nothing.
Wait until you hear a few of these again.
Yeah, it gets worse.
So who's going up?
Matt Hyde.
Right?
And Johnny.
Now, Matt, me and you can hide on this one because Matt, you said Luton would go up as champions. They got relegated. And then you said Leeds, and then Boro would be promoted. I said Leeds would win the league, Luton would come second, and then Coventry would go in the playoffs this year. And I thought they really should have beat Sunderland, and then they never. Tom, you were very, very close, but you got the promoted teams right with Burnley and Leeds, but you went Burnley first and Leeds second. They were joint 100 points, so I'll give you it. And then Boro were the playoff team, so unfortunately for you, were well off on that one. And then Dana, you were probably, I would say, the best one here. You got Leeds as champions, Burnley as second, and then Coventry in the playoffs. All of them did do that, but Coventry obviously got beat off Sunderland in that one.
Luton champions. Sorry.
All right.
They absolutely rinsed everyone this year, didn't they? They've absolutely shafted the whole crew on that one. But who's going down? Who's going down? So none of us thought that Luton were going to go down. But
no, we didn't.
We didn't. We all thought they were going to be champions at some point, and they failed miserably on that one, and they're going to be in League One next season. But who is going down? Dana, you said Watford, Plymouth, and Derby. Well, you got right with Plymouth, so you'll take that one.
It was the easiest one. We all were like, Wayne Rooney down.
Yeah, I didn't say Plymouth. So I went with Derby, Cardiff, and Watford. So I did get Cardiff right. I did say about Plymouth. I remember predicting that they would get a new manager still, but they didn't, unfortunately. Matt, you went with Oxford, Plymouth, and Blackburn. Your predictions are getting worse by the minute, Matt. We got right with Plymouth for Blackburn, finished above Boro in the Championship table, and then Tom, you were very well. You were there or thereabouts. You went with Oxford, Derby, and Hull, who all were in that relegation battle at some point.
I thought I nailed it with Hull up until the hired sellers. I thought they were shooing to go down.
Yeah, well, it might be this year because they're about to sack sellers very, very soon, and who knows what they'll bring in this year because they are in for a big, big, big turnover of players. So in terms of surprise package, now I'll disclaimer here, I always pick Bristol City, and this year I said, no, okay, I'm not picking Bristol City, and then you watch they'll get in the playoffs, and hey, they did. Absolutely got shafted there, didn't I, to be honest? But I did say Portsmouth would be my surprise package in terms of finishing mid-table. They did all right in the end. I'll take it. They had a good home record towards the end of it, so I will take that.
I believe in Danny Roll. I believed in Danny Roll. All right.
Look,
and I still believe in Danny Roll.
Sheffield Wednesday. Not too far away. Nailed on for relegation next year. Nailed on. Tom, you went with Portsmouth with me, and Darren, you went to Swansea. I can't remember why. Why did you go with Swansea again?
I don't know. Just a vibe, I guess. They always give me a vibe, Swansea. I always feel like they should play, the Swansea way, and that the Swansea way is effective, and they never quite do it. But to be fair, they only finished a position below us. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not too bad, but they might go again. They might go again. And then let's move on to Boro's Young Player of the Year. Dana Moore, you got it absolutely spot on. Well, not really spot on because he's still a young player, but he got actual Player of the Year. But Hayden Hackney got Young Player of the Year for you. Tom, me and you went with Rav Vandenberg, and Matt, you picked a player who is currently alone at Charlton in Alain Gilbert, who is currently, one of the highest assisters in the old in the Charlton team. So there you go.
Who got Young Player of the Year anyway this season? Hackney got Player of the Season. Oh yeah, I think it was Conway, wasn't it? Yeah.
Good old Tommy Conway. And then for Boro Player of the Year.
This is funny for me. This is my Matt moment.
Who's laughing now, guys? Who's laughing now? That's all I'm going to say.
Well, hey, no one likes to show off, Matt. You went correct with Hayden Hackney. Now, Tom and Dennett, you went with players who aren't at the football club anymore. They both went in January. Emmanuel Latella for Dana Wall and Matt Clark for you, Tom. I'm a bit perplexed on that one, but
I can't remember what I was thinking. I probably had an idea at the time.
You said that he'll continue his collection of Player of the Season awards, and we'll get it this time around. To be fair, he got our Player of the Month for the first 2 seasons, first 2 months, first 2 months. So he was kind of at one point on the course,
and he was top scorer as well at one point. If anyone can, where Boro didn't score a goal from open play, and then we decided to power through and do it. But I round it off. I went with Finn Azaz, and with 23 goal contributions, I can't really disagree with that. To be honest, I think he's been all right this year. Finn Azaz. There's been times where he's been great, and there's been times where he could have been a lot better. But this leads us up to the final one before we move into a quick-fire season review of our high-low season, sign of the season, favourite player and favourite goal of the season. And we'll announce our player of the year too. But our bold predictions. Now, I'll come to you all to say your own bold prediction here. And we can react after that. So, Dynamo, what was your bold prediction?
I said that Michael Carrick would finally get the better of Matt Robbins' Coventry. If only I'd have just shut up before saying Coventry, because we did actually beat Matt Robbins this season. And I said we'd do the double of Bristol City, which I just don't think is ever going to happen. There's never going to be a timeline in the universe where Boro beat Bristol City twice. No, that was always audacious.
Tom, I'll come to you on this one.
I said Emmanuel Latte-Olaf is going to outscore Chuba Akpom's 29-goal season. I don't know if he managed to do that with both clubs combined or not, but MLS seems like bizarro land to me, because Atlanta's fans have been slagging off Latte-Olaf at times, and Lucas Engel's an absolute hero over there. So, yeah, God knows what's going on there.
Good old Lucas. 5-star Lucas Engel for me on that one. And then Matt, what was yours?
Yeah, it was similar. I thought we'd actually have a centre forward who'd hit 30 and win the Golden Boot with Latte-Olaf. And to be fair, I don't know what his projected goals were at the point of which he left. He might have been mid-20s, I think, projected. So if he'd have stayed, I might have been close. But we sold him. So, yeah, never doing that again.
And then to round things off, I went Boro will finish in the top 6 for clean sheets this season. We missed out by 2. Now, I'm going to blame Senny Dieng for this, just for no reason at all. And we finished ranked 10th. But we were very close to it. And you know what? At times, I was thinking, hey, we're in for a shout here. We're in for a shout. And then, never going to do that again. But, right, before we move on to the quick fire season review, we're going to take a couple of minutes of a breather, and then we'll be back in just a moment where, Tom, you will sadly be departing us, and we will round things off with me, Dana, and Matt. Welcome back, gang. Welcome back. We are without Tom, of course. Tom has gone and departed and flew away into the darkness. I can't tell you where he's gone, but he's gone somewhere. But he had to go. I'm not telling you. Maybe you should let us know in the comments below. Where's Tom gone? Let's go. We will soon find out. But I'll tell you what, where he's going, the person that he's going to see thought that me and Tom were related. We are not related. But let's move on to the quick fire season review part of the show now, where we're going to do our highest point, our lowest point, the sign of the season, favourite player this season, and Boro's your favourite goal of the season as well. And we'll round things off with our Boro Breakdown Player of the Year before we finally go into our end of season survey results, where you fed back into the podcast, and we'll give our thoughts on that as well. So, high point of the season, Matt Rowney, I'll come to you first. What was your high point of the season?
When it ended. No, I'm joking. It was when my young player of the season, Alain Gilbert, turned home that beautiful cross in the 93rd minute at Hull. That's my high point. And that is why he still is my young player of the season, right there.
You know what? It was actually mine as well. I know we haven't compared notes here, but it was actually my high point as well. Because I remember at the time went, oh, that's a big goal, that. And it couldn't have happened to a player who I thought, you know what? You deserve that. You deserve that. And he's a clean technician, is Elijah Gilbert. Now, probably needs to improve a little bit more. But hey, he's done well there. I'll give you that. And then, Dan, what was yours?
I am actually going to say when it ended. That was my favourite moment, or the high point of the season. It just put me out of my bloody misery.
It was up there. It was up there, genuinely.
Yeah, it was. To be fair, my low point of the season was the final whistle, because that was when I felt really deflated, I would say. I looked at it across the board and I was like, yeah, just that was a bit of a sickener. The home game before that, was with Norwich, was one where it's like, yeah, lads, how many chances do we need here? We should be talking about playoffs, in this podcast. But yeah, the final whistle was probably a low point for me. I think it was definitely where I felt probably the most deflated. And you can look at the results we had from January, February time, where that was a big disappointment for us as well. But I think to pinpoint one moment, I think it's the final whistle of the season, when all was said and done. We all shook hands. That was my low point. But Matt, what was yours?
Probably the Watford game at home. I just didn't like being in the Riverside that day. The atmosphere. Obviously, we were on a tough run. We lost 1-0. It was really toxic, and I honestly thought that day we would never see Michael Carrick in the dugout ever again. I don't know. I just didn't like that game. I thought performance was really poor. The atmosphere was toxic. It was an uncomfortable day at the Riverside. That was, and I hope, Carrick or not, we don't have many more of them going into the next season.
I'm going to go with Swansea away. I think that was the nadir of Boro season. It was a god-awful performance, poor result. Just saw nothing from that side that filled me with any sort of semblance of confidence, really. I couldn't be asked with the game when I woke up, and they basically didn't get me up for it. It was one of those games where your team's performing so poorly that when they inevitably concede, you just accept it because it's always been on the cards and it probably should happen. And then after that, we just did nothing really to respond to it. So there's been a few low moments. The second half against Sheffield Wednesday, I think the away game against Sheffield Wednesday, but for me, I think the low point, I have to say Swansea away.
Yeah, and I think if I was to have a second place, I'd probably say Sheffield United away was probably one. I remember as soon as they scored, I switched it off. And you know what? I went and enjoyed my night. I did my ironing, and it was a good evening all round. No crease was left. On those t-shirts. It was a stellar night after that. To be honest,
no crease left unironed
or unturned. But anyway, sign of the season. Well, no Kelechi Iheanacho's not going to win this one. Very in sneeze. But then, who's your sign of the season?
I'll go with Ed Morris. I think he's had a solid first season, really translated well to the physicality of the Championship. Good engine on him, good reader of the game. Just keeps where ticking, a steady Eddie in midfield, and I think the exact type of player that Boro needs. So, yeah, go on. Ed Morris.
I'll make it 2 out of 2. And Matt, are we going to make it a hat-trick?
I was going to go with Tommy Conway. I think he's top knee slider, good shithouse. He's probably the most likely to bring out that good old Shithouse Island jingle that we've just not heard enough of this season, which is really, really sad. But I think he's the most likely to bring that out and be the next guy to get that free flight to Shithouse Island. And I always forget that he's only 22, isn't he? I just feel like he's so mature for his age, and I think he will grow into being a really, really good top Championship centre forward for us. So I really like Tommy Conway.
Yeah, good old Tommy Conway, Tommy knee slide. Well done, son. Right, so favourite player. I'll go kick us off here. I couldn't look past any other player than Hayden Hackney. I thought he was brilliant for the most of the season. 80-90% of the games that he played in, he was stand out for me. We played through him a lot, and I think that he has just evolved into a really fun and talented footballer. Now, there is some work that needs to be done. Of course, there always is with football. No one's perfect. But for me, I think one, Carrick deserves a lot of credit for developing him into a player that he is. And I think secondly, the way that he's took the feedback on and developed and evolved his game time and time and time again, I think it can't go unmissed. And you know what? It's going to be sad probably seeing him go in the summer, but I think he is so ready for a step up. And yeah, it's going to be sad to see him go, but people will command a certain fee. But I think it's all about the sell-on clause with Hayden Hackney, because it depends on who he goes to. I think the sky could potentially be the limit for him. I think I really, really rate him highly. But yeah, that was my favourite player. I think Carrick deserves a bit of credit there for developing even further the last couple of years. But Dana, who was your favourite player?
I'd go Hackney as well. I agree with everything that you said. I think he's been one of the bright spots this season. Not without his inconsistencies, not without his frustrations, but still what he actually brings to this side, the good of Hayden Hackney has been very enjoyable indeed.
Yeah, hat-trick. Hat-trick Hackney, I'd agree. Gonna miss him.
Yeah, it's going to be a sad day when he goes. He'll stay for the rest of the season. And we all look like fools again. But we'll round things off with our favourite goal of the season. Dan, I'll come to you again. What is your favourite goal?
It's got to be Conway's against Blackburn. It has to be.
Yeah, it was a great finish. And then Matt, you were there as well. Denny, you were there as well. You were both there.
Me and Matt were there.
Yeah,
we were both
there.
there.
Matt, what was yours?
Yeah, I'd agree. To be there as well. The actual timing of the goal, like, was that to put us 2-0 up? Or was it the second goal? Was it the second goal? I can't recall.
No, it was first, because Ellen Jr. was the second.
That's right, yeah. But like, again, being in the away end, thinking, oh my God, I'm seeing another victory here. What's going on? And to see us start the game as well as we did, that in itself makes that moment so good for me. But yeah, when I didn't realise how good of a goal it was until I saw it back. And then when I saw the replays of it, I thought, my God, Berg can't beat your heart out. That is, flick and then left foot, top bin. Yeah, cracking goal that.
Yeah. To round things off, I haven't given it a hat trick here, but I've went with Light Lath against QPR because I find the goal just really funny. I just think it's hilarious. The ball from Riley McGree is superb, and the way Boro play out and get into that position is brilliant. And then how, not just that he takes it too far, he chops the goalkeeper, and then he still doesn't hit the back of the net because he hits the defender when it goes in. And I think it's just so poetically beautiful. And I think he deserves all plaudits for that. The shithousery of it all, when it really wasn't deliberate, I don't think. I think he just took it too far and he got away with one, to be honest.
It was just Lathery, that, wasn't it?
It was. And you know what? I love Lath. And he probably shouldn't have went to the MLS, but hey, you can't fault him. He's earning a massive wedge. And,
And he gets to play with Brad Guzan.
And he plays with Brad Guzan, So he's a real winner here. But finally, to round everything off here, is Boro Breakdown's Player of the Year. Now, this probably is going to be the worst, kept secret on this podcast. But then I will let you reveal who Boro Breakdown's Player of the Season is.
Yeah, it is without question Mr. Hayden Hackney. He's had a brilliant season and he tops it off for us. He's the Boro Breakdown Player of the Season for 2024-25. The best award that he will get this season, obviously.
So congratulations to him. Now that will go on there's no awards. You've just got the actual title of it all. Yes. Congratulations to you. If you want a trophy, we'll work something out. But let's move on and then round this podcast off, because we've been going for an hour and a half now. It's a long time. You're probably tired. I'm tired. Dana's tired. Matt's tired. But if you're on that long drive and you still need another 15 minutes, well, this is probably the best place to be. And the end of season survey results. So we reached out on social media and said, hey, we want some thoughts of your faith and recruitment team, your thoughts on Matt Carrick, and also your optimism for next season. Now, I want to compare what you all said last year, because I think it's very interesting to see how the shift in the fan base has definitely changed over this year. So the first part of this question was, what is your faith in the recruitment team? And last year was actually really interesting, because the majority of people, around just about 70+%, had a lot of faith in Boro's recruitment team. Whereas this year, it's really changed. So now when we said last year, over 70% was in favour of the recruitment team and how we were recruiting players, 70% were now in the middle of the road. Between 4 and 6 were 4 to 7 was where the majority of fans lived. And what's really interesting here is that only 3% of people were massively in favour in Boro's recruitment team now. And on the other side of things, 7% were not in favour of Boro's recruitment team. But I think that big shift is quite telling, because how Middlesbrough's recruitment over the last couple of seasons, I think, has been relatively quite strong. But I think it's been definitely overshadowed by the signing of Ian Sneeze. I would say it was probably one of the big things where it's really shifted. Guys, what's your thoughts on that? The big shift on the recruitment team. Do you echo those thoughts?
I thought it'd be a lot lower, to be honest. I mean, we always hear in our YouTube comments, and I read on Facebook as well, a lot of criticism of Kieran Scott. And to be fair, I think this season's been the season where we've just not got it right, in particularly the January transfer window. So to be honest, I was expecting it to be pretty lower than it is. I mean, the most voted category is 7 out of 10, 107 votes out of 413, so 25.9% there voted 7 out of 10. Faith in Boro's recruitment, I thought that would be lower, to be honest. I thought the dominant maybe voting out of that scale would maybe be around a 5, 4 potentially. But it just shows that like social media and the response to it isn't always like reflective of the general consensus.
I agree with that as well. I agree with that, Dana. I don't think there's much more to add there. But let's move on to the Michael Carrick part, and faith in Michael Carrick. So this is where I think this is the one where I was most shocked by, I would say, from the comparisons from the
Changed
previous
massively.
year.
Yeah.
100% it has. So I think from last year, 90%, 95% of people were massively in favour of Michael Carrick from 8 to 10. This year has massively changed, where 75% of people were in the middle of the road. We had 7% with no faith. We had 10% in just a little bit of faith, bit of George Michael there. And then in the middle of it all, we've got probably about 75% of people lived in the 4 to 7 mark. What's really interesting is the shift. We've went from about 90 odd percent in from 8, 9, and 10 to actually only 11%. And that big shift in faith of Michael Carrick has definitely changed across the board. And Matt, what was your thoughts on that? I know you've been saying around a lot around the potential change of Michael Carrick and the faith that you've lost. So where do you think fans have lost the faith in Michael Carrick?
I think it's maybe the lack of progression. I think if fans can see that there's progression being made, they'll get behind it. And I think you're just looking at us finishing behind where we were last season. As I said, points lower, goals lower. And maybe there's still things that we'd like to see improve, like the defence. The home record is another one that I don't think can be overlooked. We're just not good enough at home. And I think just over time, we'll be 3 years in soon, and fans would be expecting to maybe see a little bit more at this stage. So I completely sort of echo that, and it leans into the idea that I think next season the start is, as we've said, absolutely huge. I think there's so many fans that are teetering. They could quite easily go one way. They could quite easily go the other if we don't start well next season. I think the majority that are in that 4, 5, 6, 7 bracket will quickly drop down to 1, 2, 3, and that's when I worry things could get toxic.
Where would we put ourselves on that scale? Because I think I'm like maybe 5, between 4 and 5. Where would you guys put yourself?
3 for me. I'd say 3. I've just got no reason to be, other than blind faith, I've got no reason to be all that optimistic.
Yeah, for me, I'm probably about 7 or 8. I think I still think that there's enough. I've seen enough to go. If you've got something around you, then you'd be good enough. I think that first season will a lot of people will say, oh well, you know what, we've had 60% win rate. This year it's been about 40, and similarly to that, it's about 40% as well. And I still think that's relatively quite strong. He's still won about just under 50% of his games as a manager here, which is still really high. And I just think we need to improve the quality of player. in the summer and then give him a few more months. 'Cause I don't think we'll go down. I just think we just need to improve the floor of it. My faith's still there. And I know how difficult management can be. And I think management it's so hard to get right. Whether you're in business or in football, it's a very difficult, can't win. And yeah, I'll see how he does. But I think the football's good. I think he's probably learned a lot this year. Again, it's only his really second year in management. And the third year is where you'll think, okay, this is 3 years now. You've started to build your foundations. You've got a team around you. You've got players that it's all molded in the identity that you pretty much what all the club wants. So yeah, I think this is the year where I'll be like, okay, let's see where it is. But I'm still relatively quite positive about it all. But as a manager, you're only 6 games away or 6 wins in a row to being the best manager in the world and 6 defeats in a row to being the worst manager in the world. And that is just what football is. It's very high and low. So yeah, I'm still relatively quite strong. But then finally, to round things off, it's optimism for the season ahead, and we'll be back obviously in a few weeks to go through our season preview. But last year, similarly to the faith of Michael Carrick, a lot of people were very, very excited for this season, where over 90% of people were in that 7 to 10 mark, and well, actually 97.4 were actually interested in the season, very optimistic for it. But for this year, which I think is very telling, and I think it's very reflective and very similar to what the faith like is in Mike Carrick, so you could actually pinpoint it as if you get rid of Carrick, people's optimism will return. A big 75% of people felt meh. To be honest, between 3 and 6, they weren't optimistic for the season. They weren't happy for the season. And I think that is incredibly sad. I think if you aren't excited or optimistic for any football season, then that just shows that you've hit apathy and you are pretty much sick of watching Boro play. And I think that can compound. I think, when you look at Boro's tickets, how bad we were at home last year, the cost of living crisis, everything can compound into a real frustration. And when that happens, it is very, very hard to get it back. And we'll see how this goes throughout the season. I think with naturally content creators definitely help here, because if you do lowdown videos like we do, or previews or technical analysis, I think that builds the excitement again. But on a larger scale, I think a lot of fans will not be too best pleased. But Dana, where are you putting yourself on the optimism scale?
It's difficult because we're kind of caught in a time now where I'm almost nearly switching off from football entirely. But when I really think about it, it's probably around a 4, I think. I mean, I don't really know where Boro are going to go from here, because it has been regression under Michael Carrick, and I think he's going to have a lot of work to do, as I said at the top of the show, to win some fans back and, to win me back, because I'm kind of stuck in the middle between Carrick in, Carrick out. I'm not going to actively call for him to be sacked, because I actually like Carrick. Previous managers I just haven't liked, so I've been, let's get rid of them. But no, it's difficult to find optimism, or a lot of optimism, in next season, because I feel like there's so many things, there's so many issues with this squad that need to be addressed, and it kind of boils down to, do I have the confidence in that to be successfully sorted out? That's also kind of meh in the middle. So yeah, 4 is probably where I'd place myself on a scale of 0 to 10 in terms of optimism for next season. It will get bigger, of course, as the summer progresses, as we get linked to more players. But right now, as we record this, I'm thinking a 4 out of 10.
Matt, finish us off.
Yeah, I'd say mine's the same as what I said with Carrick. It's probably a 3. I know it will rise. It obviously will. It'll probably be at a 10 come the day before our first game of the season, as it always is. But I need to see some changes. It doesn't have to be the manager. It can be what's around him, what's behind him. I just need to see something, and I hope that's what the club are doing with this thorough review. But exactly like Dana said, I've not got much reason. I've not got much to hold on to other than blind faith that will just strike gold with either a new manager or recruitment in the summer. And I've got this horrible feeling, the same niggly feeling of inevitability that I had in my head from maybe February onwards. It was just, we're going to miss out, we're going to fall short on the final day at Coventry. We could all sort of see where things were heading. I've got that same annoying feeling of inevitability that we won't start well. Things will get pretty toxic and nasty, and then October we will see the inevitable, and then we're going to be chasing from that moment onwards. I think it's just being stuck in the same Boro cycle. I feel like we're just entering that again. So I hope it changes, and I hope the thorough review that Boro are doing is going to bring them changes that can get fans believing again.
Okay, then. Well, thank you very much, guys. That rounds us off. End of season review show is now done. Now I just want to quickly say thank you to you watching or listening to us. We just want to say thank you again for helping us grow this season. Thank you for engaging with our content. Over 90% of you listen all the way through to our shows. Now, if you've listened all the way through today, it's an hour and 45 minutes. That is a long time. That is a very long time. So a big thank you to everyone who's listened to us this season. Now, I normally say we'll be back in a few weeks. We'll be come back here and there. We're going to take a little break. But now with Boro doing a review themselves, we might be back tomorrow. We could be back the week after. We could be back very soon. Boro might sign a player. Who knows? But we will have content throughout the summer, dissecting Boro's new transfers, outgoings, incomings, changes, news, you name it. Might even have a guest or two on as well. Who knows? We might have planned that already. But for right now, this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast. And that was our Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod. Up the Boro.